So good morning everyone. So today is the continuation class of the topic which I covered in my previous class, that is yesterday. So the topic remains the same, the thyroid and anti-thyroid drug. In the previous class, I started with this topic and then we went through the history, the location of the thyroid gland, the hormones released, what are the synthetic pathway, what are the pathway which is involves in the synthesis, then what are the enzymes which are involved, then how it is released. Then also we saw the hypothyroid condition and hyperthyroid condition. What are the manifestations of hypothyroid condition and hyperthyroid condition? And then we saw the classification also, and then we started with the mechanism of action. We saw the mechanism of action of thyroid gland, thyroid hormone we saw. Then pharmacological action on the different organ system we started with and could finish the cardiovascular system, the effect on cardiovascular system. So in today's class, I will be extending the pharmacological action and then we'll go in the classification of anti-thyroid drugs and then the individual drug. So after cardiovascular effect, there is metabolic effect. So again, it is divided into the condition of hyperthyroidism and hypothyroidism. So what happens, what are the effects on metabolism when there is hyperthyroidism? So thyrotoxicosis is there, it's an insulin resistant state. Thyrotoxicosis is mostly an insulin resistant state. There is increased basal metabolic rate and there is negative nitrogen balance. There is enhanced gluconeogenesis and an increase in the rate of glucose absorption from the gut. So combinedly, the gluconeogenesis and increased glucose absorption from the gut will lead to hyperglycemia-like condition. Hyperglycemia-like condition. And when this hyperglycemia appears, there is compensatory rise in the level of insulin. Compensatory rise in the secretion of insulin, and then that condition is known as compensatory hyperinsulinemia. On the free fatty acid, there is stimulation occurs, there is increased level of free fatty acid, there is decreased cholesterol and triglyceride, and then the metabolism of the drug is increased. So induction of the enzyme responsible for metabolism of drugs happens, and because of which there is increased metabolism. Coming to what happens in hypothyroidism, opposite to that of thyrotoxicosis, there is decreased basal metabolic rate. Where there was a negative nitrogen balance in hyperthyroidism, there is slight positive nitrogen balance. Then there is decreased absorption of glucose from the gut and decreased insulin secretion. So hyperinsulinemia there it was, and in thyrotoxicosis there was increased absorption of glucose from the gut. Opposite happens over here. And a reduced rate of peripheral glucose uptake, and uptake of the glucose is also decreased. For cholesterol and triglyceride, there is increased cholesterol and increased triglyceride, and the drug metabolism is decreased in the condition of hypothyroidism. Now quickly moving on to the skin and appendages and renal system. So on skin, in the condition of thyrotoxicosis, we will see the skin warm, moist, and it sweats a lot. The skin may become heat intolerant. There may be a thin hair, and there may be appearance of Graves' disease. In case of hypothyroidism, the skin may become pale, cool. The skin may appear as puffy. The hair may become very brittle, and then it becomes dry, the shyness goes, and then nail also becomes brittle. You will see the cracks around the nails. Then there is effect on the renal system. In condition of thyrotoxicosis, there is mild polyuria, there is increased GFR, glomerular filtration rate is increased, and there is increased renal blood flow. Upon hypothyroidism, there is impaired water excretion. So excretion of water is decreased. So more of water retains inside. There is decreased renal blood flow and there is decrease in the glomerular filtration rate. You can see the opposite effect occurs in case of thyrotoxicosis and hypothyroidism when it comes to renal, skin or any other organ system. Now we'll discuss what are the thyroid disorder and how to treat those particular thyroid disorder. Starting with, there is hypothyroidism, when there is lesser of thyroid hormone concentration in the body, blood plasma, then that condition is known as hypothyroidism. Now this hypothyroidism may be because of many factors, can be because of primary origin or the secondary origin, which we have already discussed in my previous class. So cretinism, I have already discussed in the previous class only. What was cretinism and what are the different types? There was endemic cretinism and then sporadic cretinism was there, and there was a specific reason for those, which I have already explained. Mixed edema, which occurs in adult, whereas cretinism occurs in children. In case of mixed edema, there is appearance of puffy face, basal metabolic rate is decreased, there is hoarseness of voice, there is decreased heart rate, cardiac output is increased, gastrointestinal related effect may be constipation, there may be low body temperature, the person becomes sensitive to cold, there is weakness of muscle, there is decreased sexual enhancement, there is decreased sexual pleasure, there is decreased sexual activity, so decreased libido, infertility may be there, increased triglyceride or weight gain can be seen in mixed edema. Whereas mixed edema coma, it's a coma-like condition, an emergency condition where hyponatremia can be seen, decreased blood glucose is there, hypercapnia may be there, and then there may be adrenal insufficiency. That means there is lesser release of adrenal gland mediated hormones. Then the condition comes which is known as Hashimoto's thyroiditis. It's a autoimmune disease. It's an autoimmune disease and a chronic type of autoimmune disease, and happens because of the immune reaction which occurs against thyroglobulin and thyroid peroxidase. In the last class only we saw that the formation or storage of thyroid hormone appears or happens in thyroglobulin, and it happens by the help of enzyme thyroid peroxidase. So if there is an immune reaction against this thyroglobulin where the thyroid hormone are stored, or if it happens against the enzymes which helps in the formation of thyroid hormone, then there may be a disorder, and that is known as Hashimoto thyroiditis. Then we have a central hypothyroidism. The name only suggests that the problem appears in the central part. There may be secondary hypothyroidism of pituitary failure, and there may be a tertiary hypothyroidism where there is hypothalamic failure. So upon a pituitary failure, there is decreased release of TSH. So that is known as secondary. But when there is decreased release or stimulation of hypothalamus, so that there is decreased release of TRH, then that is known as hypothalamic failure or tertiary hypothyroidism. Hypothyroidism present at birth is known as congenital hypothyroidism. So these are the various conditions or disorder related with hypothyroidism. Now, how to treat this type of hypothyroidism? So the drugs like levothyroxine or liothyronine comes in. Levothyroxine is available in tablet form, liquid filled capsule, lyophilized powder for injection, and absorption is better when these drugs are taken empty stomach. So usually when this thyroid hormone or levothyroxine is given, the patients are asked to take it empty stomach as soon as you get up, and then take it, and then after half an hour or after 1 hour, you can take any food. It is useful for the treatment of hypothyroidism which occurs in non-endemic goiter and non-endemic areas, and non-endemic goiter, there it can be used. Then chronic thyroiditis, there it can be used. Then if the carcinoma, thyroid carcinoma is TSH dependent, then also levothyroxine can be given. Hope you can recall the regulation of the thyroid hormone release from hypothalamus, pituitary, and pituitary to thyroid gland. So it's all based on that. So TSH dependent thyroid carcinoma, if it is there, then levothyroxine treatment can be given. The treatment regimen usually involves levothyroxine at the dose of 50 to 100 microgram per oral, and then can be increased every 25 to 50 microgram at 2 weeks interval. So every 2-week interval, you can increase 25 to 50 microgram depending upon the response rate and the condition of the disease and the appearance of the adverse effect. If there is no adverse effect like palpitation, tremor, and sweating, there is a spelling mistake here, sweating. So if there is no such adverse effect, then the dose can be increased to 25 to 50 microgram every 2-week interval. Other condition where it can be given, levothyroxine is mixed edema coma. It's an emergency condition, and there liothyronine is, again there is a spelling mistake here, TH. So liothyronine is preferred over levothyroxine because it has short duration of action and a rapid action. The action starts immediately, so very fast compared to levothyroxine. So in that emergency condition, liothyronine drug is preferred. Given at the loading dose of 100 microgram intravenously, and then 25 microgram every 6 hours interval, IV daily can be given. Along with that, hydrocortisone 100 milligram IV, and then 25 to 50 milligram every 8 hours. This is to prevent concomitant adrenal insufficiency. We have seen that there may be an adrenal insufficiency, so hydrocortisone can be given to prevent any concomitant adrenal insufficiency. During pregnancy, endemic goiter or any other condition, there should be a proper assessment, and then accordingly treatment should be provided. Then drug interaction on thyroid hormone therapy. If we give levothyroxine or thyroid hormone or levothyroxine, then there may be increased requirement of insulin in diabetic. So like insulin resistant cases, there may be an increased concentration required for the diabetic person. There is increased metabolism of digoxin, so a larger dose is necessary for digitalization. Then there is a reduction in anticoagulant dose because upon thyroid or hormone treatment or thyroxine treatment or levothyroxine treatment, it causes a decreased concentration of clotting factor. So because of decreased concentration of clotting factor, you do not require to give the same amount of anticoagulant. If the person is being put on this type of drug, there should be reduction of anticoagulant dose because of the thyroid hormone or thyroid hormone like drugs, they decrease the concentration of clotting factor. So that can become one very important pharmacological basis type question. Then hyperthyroidism and thyrotoxicosis. Hyperthyroidism and thyrotoxicosis. Previous 3 slides I discussed the condition of hypothyroidism and the treatment. Now coming to hyperthyroidism or thyrotoxicosis and then the related treatment. This is the condition where there is overproduction of T3 or T4, the liothyronine and then the thyroxine and the triiodothyronine. So the manifestation like increased BMR, the heat intolerance, the tachycardia, increased cardiac output, cardiac arrhythmia, glycemia, weakness, muscle wasting, fine tremor, and insomnia may be seen in overproduction of triiodothyronine or thyroxine. There is a Graves' disease, which is an autoimmune disorder, can happen because of 2 reasons. There may be production of thyroid stimulating immunoglobulin. So those immunoglobulins are produced, which causes the stimulation of thyroid gland, and it mimics the action of TSH. And because it mimics the action of TSH, it will replicate the action of TSH, which causes the more release of T3 and T4. This particular process cannot be regulated by negative feedback, where we saw when there is increased concentration of T3 and T4, there will be negative feedback at the hypothalamus and pituitary level. So that part won't be applicable here because this is immunoglobulin mediated action. Then the other condition, the reason may be T3 and T4 and thyroid stimulating immunoglobulin serum level, there may be it is high and there is enlarged gland and exophthalmos may appear. Then we have thyroid storm. So it's a life-threatening and severe form of thyrotoxicosis. Important. Remember, it's a life-threatening and severe form of thyrotoxicosis, and occurs in the untreated or partially treated thyrotoxic patient. If the patient is not treated because of for its hypothyroid condition, or they are partially treated and then treatment is stopped, their thyroid storm may appear. What are the precipitating factor for it? There may be infection, stress may be there, trauma, thyroidal or non-thyroidal surgery, diabetic ketoacidosis, labor, heart disease, or radioactive iodine treatment. If these things prevails, then there may be worsening or there may be an appearance of thyroid storm. So these are the precipitating factor for thyroid storm. Clinical features are similar but exaggerated to thyrotoxicosis. So thyrotoxicosis like manifestation may be seen here. It may be more exaggerated form like fever, tachycardia, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, agitation, central confusion, coma, and there may be death also. Then coming to management of this thyroid storm or hyperthyroidism, there is intravenous fluid should be given. There is effect on water excretion or sodium excretion also. So intravenous fluid should be given. Fever is there, so for that antipyretics should be given. Cooling blanket should be given. The patient should be asked to take it, and then sedation may be required to suppress the central action. Then anti-thyroid drugs should be given at a larger dose, especially propyl thiouracil. We will discuss the anti-thyroid drugs later in the later part. So here in propyl thiouracil or methimazole can be given, but propyl thiouracil is preferred over methimazole because it has multiple action and it also impairs the peripheral conversion of T4 to T3, which is an active part or active form of thyroid hormone. Usually it is given at 250 milligram orally QID, that is 4 times a day. So here you can see that propyl thiouracil acts at the iodination step, at coupling step, and as well as deiodination of T4, where peripheral conversion. Whereas methimazole, why it is not preferred? Because it acts at only iodination and coupling stage, not at the peripheral conversion stage. Oral iodides are also used after the first dose of antithyroid drug has been administered. If given more than 6 milligram, then it causes inhibition of release. Sodium iodide can also be given at 1 gram orally daily. It inhibits the peripheral conversion also. Propranolol also can be given at the dose of 40 to 80 milligram QID. Again, this drug also converts. This drug also inhibit the peripheral conversion of T4 to T3. And obviously, there should be a treatment of underlying disorder. Now, coming to what are the classes of drugs which are used in case of hyperthyroidism. So, just remember the mnemonic like TRI, T-R-I, TRI. The first class is thioamides, and the second class is radioactive iodine, and the third and the fourth class starts with I, that is iodides and iodinated contrast media. So you can remember with the mnemonics TRI, thiamide, radioactive iodine, and iodides or iodinated contrast media. Now the example for thiamides is propyl thiuracil, carbimazole, and methimazole. Propyl thiuracil, carbimazole, and methimazole. This can be remembered with the mnemonic PCM, that is paracetamol. But here it is not paracetamol. P for propyl thiuracil, C for carbimazole, and M for methimazole. Radioactive iodine is 131. Usually it is used. The other radioactive iodine are of importance for the diagnostic purpose. Iodides, aqueous potassium iodide or Lugol's iodine are the examples. And then oral apodate and aponic acid are the example for iodinated contrast media. Coming to the first group of drugs, that is thioamides. So what is the mechanism? See, there is presence of essential thiocarbamide group. So this thiocarbamide group is always present in any of the drugs which comes under thioamide group, like propyl thiuracil, methimazole, carbimazole. And what it does, this group of drug usually inhibit the synthesis part. So synthesis is inhibited, and that happens at the level of iodination, coupling, and peripheral conversion. So iodination, it inhibits the iodination. So that B part iodination and then C part coupling. This is done by both propyl thiuracil and methimazole. Whereas the carbimazole, and then propyl thiuracil one has the additional mechanism at peripheral conversion also. So peripheral conversion, that is applicable only for propyl thiuracil, but iodination inhibition and coupling inhibition is by methimazole also. Carbimazole, usually this is converted to the methimazole, and then that is carbimazole is 10 times more potent than that of propyl thiuracil. Coming to a very nice table for metabolism of propyl thiuracil and methimazole. This compares the metabolic criteria of propyl thiuracil and methimazole. What is important over here is we see the difference, drastic significant difference in the plasma protein binding of propyl thiuracil and methimazole, 75% where there is nil. Then plasma half-life also, propyl thiuracil is 75 minutes where there it is 4 to 6 hours. So lesser dosing is required in case of methimazole. Then, and that's why it is given once or twice daily, and whereas this is given 1 to 4 times daily. There is a decreased metabolism of drug during illness when there is severe liver disease for methimazole. Otherwise, it's same for propyl thiuracil and methimazole. So, what are the uses of this group? These drugs are used in the definitive treatment to control the disorder in anticipation of spontaneous remission in Graves' disease. So for spontaneous remission of this disease, this is the definite treatment. It is also given in addition to the radioactive iodine, so that it increases or it fastens the recovery while you wait for the effect of radiation. Also, this is given to control various to control the disorder when there is a surgical treatment. Graves' disease, methimazole is preferred, as I told previously also, because of lesser dosing interval. So the frequency is you have to give lesser number of drug in here. That's why, and because of long plasma half-life of this drug, this is less toxic than propyl thiouracil and has long duration of action. So that's why methimazole is preferred over propyl thiouracil. Once this type of condition appears and then you treat it, you cannot stop the drug. If you stop, there is the recurrence appears and thyroid storm may appear. So there may be a requirement of lifelong treatment for this type of disorder. The adverse effects, agranulocytosis may appear, and it appears very rapidly. And when this appears, when there is appearance of sore throat or fever, the person should immediately contact or consult the doctor, and there should be a discontinuation of this group of drug, and then a granulocyte count may be started. Mild urticarial, papular rash, then pain, stiffness in the joint, paresthesia, headache, nausea, skin pigmentation, and loss of hair can be seen as an adverse effect. Abnormal liver function test may be there when higher dose of propyl thiouracil is given. There may be appearance of drug fever, hepatitis, and nephritis, but these are usually rare. Coming to the next group, which is iodides. This is the oldest remedy. This is the oldest remedy for the disorder of hyperthyroidism. So what is the mechanism? The iodide limits its own transport. We have seen the figure how there is transportation by the help of sodium iodide symporter, right? So when iodide is given at a particular dose, then it inhibits its own transport, and then acutely and very acutely and transiently it inhibits the synthesis of iodotyrosines and iodothyronine. So when you give iodide more than 6 milligram, then it inhibits its own transport, so that there is lesser or no synthesis of iodotyrosine and iodothyronine, and thus there is no synthesis or formation of liver iodide hormone. And this process is known as Wolff-Chaikoff effect. Wolff-Chaikoff effect. There is inhibition of thyroid hormone release also, and it takes around 4 to 8 weeks for thyroid escape. So this inhibition of Wolff-Chaikoff effect is reversed, and then there is again accumulation of iodide appears, and then synthesis and release resumes. Propyl thiouracil is generally given with potassium iodide to antagonists. Then responses to iodides. What happens when you give iodide before surgery and all? It is given just because when we give this, the vascularity is reduced, the gland becomes small and firm, so that the operation is easier and then with lesser of bleeding. So vascularity is reduced, the gland becomes much firmer and then becomes small. That's why this type of drug is given before surgery. So obviously, I'm talking about the thyroid surgery only, the thyroid gland surgery, the removal. The maximal effect occurs after 10 to 15 days of continuous therapy. So the drug should be given much before the scheduled operation. Adverse effect like angioedema, laryngeal edema, the hypersensitivity can be seen. There may be unpleasant brassy taste burning in the mouth and throat, soreness of teeth and gum, increased salivation, coryza, sneezing, and irritation of eye with swelling of eyes. There may be diarrhea, fever, anorexia, and depression also. Coming to radioactive iodine, as I told previously also, the iodine 131 is given as a treatment, whereas the other form of iodine are usually used for the diagnosis. So 123 and 31 is for diagnosis and treatment. 123 iodine is primarily short-lived, which emits only gamma radiation, and the plasma half-life is 13 hours, used for diagnostic purpose. 131 has a T-half of 8 days, and it emits both gamma as well as beta particles, gamma and beta particles. It is used because it destructs the enlarged thyroid gland, enlarged thyroid cells, in case of thyroid cancer and for thyroid ablation and treatment of metastatic diseases. So in case of enlarged thyroid cancer, when this is given, this causes thyroid destruction of the cells. How? This iodine 131s are trapped in the thyroid gland, thyroid cells, and incorporated into iodoamino acid. And from there it is deposited in the colloid of the follicle, and from the follicle it is slowly liberated, emitting the beta particle and gamma rays, which destroys the cells. The beta particle originate in the follicle and act exclusively on parenchymal cell of thyroid with little damage to surrounding tissue. So when these iodine 131 radioactive iodine 131 is given, these are trapped in the thyroid colloid follicles, and from there it is slowly liberated and emits the beta particle, which destroys or which affects the parenchymal cell of thyroid and not the surrounding tissue. Uses: hyperthyroidism in older patient and in those with heart disease, so there it is more preferred. Then persistent grave disorder or are recurred after subtotal thyroidectomy. Prolonged treatment with anti-thyroid drug has not led to a remission. When you use the anti-thyroid drug for a prolonged period of time, but remission does not occur, then we have to use it. When there is a grave disease, persistent prolonged Graves disease, or the Graves disease or thyroidostom or hyperthyroidism appears, when there is subtotal thyroidectomy, in that case also it is given. In case of toxic nodular goiter also it is given. Then coming to ionic inhibitor. Ionide, thiocyanate, perchlorate, and fluoroborate. These are the monovalent hydrated anion which are used for the treatment. Thiocyanate in large amount, this particular drug inhibits the organification. Hope you remember the synthetic pathway. Perchlorate, which is the 10 times more potent than thiocyanate, it blocks the entrance of iodide into the thyroid by competitively inhibit the sodium iodide symporter, and itself can be transported by sodium iodide symporter into the thyroid gland. So it inhibits this transporter symporter and blocks the entrance of iodide into the thyroid follicular cell. Coming to iodinated contrast media. So we have iodinated a rich compound, and these inhibits the deiodinase enzyme, which we have already seen in the previous class, and these enzymes help in the peripheral conversion from T4 to T3. These are usually given with thioamides. So this was all about the various drugs used in case of hyperthyroidism and hypothyroidism, especially the hyperthyroidism part, where we use the anti-thyroid drugs. Now, anti-thyroid drug classification per se is very important. You need to remember the classes. As I told, the mnemonic also very easy to remember. And then there may be essay type question in relation to the thioamides, the first group. And there may be an expectation for the question from radioactive part, radioactive iodine part. So the essay type question may come like classify anti-thyroid drugs, explain the pharmacological action, mechanism of action, uses, adverse effect of thioamides. Or the question may come as short notes like treatment of thyroid storm, or short notes on radioactive iodine. So, and few pharmacological basis that question may also be expected. So in short, 2 or 3 questions can be easily formed from this chapter, and this chapter remains a very important chapter from your examination point of view. So next, tomorrow, I will start with the chemotherapy. I'll start with the introduction of chemotherapy, and from there onward, we will go deeper into chemotherapy section, and then we'll try to finish the chemotherapy section one by one. So again, this chemotherapy section is a very important part, and a lot of question is expected from chemotherapy. Chemotherapy part usually comes in the second paper, and you cannot do selective reading. You have to do thorough reading for that, and then try to remember the classification. Okay, so I'll stop my class over here only. Thank you so much.